Hi, my name's Linda Forrest and I work as a muse. What I do as a muse is I work with people to help inspire them. So I might work with businesses on inspiring vision, or I might work with artists and musicians to inspire their art in a traditional muse sense. But I also work with individuals. And when I work with individuals, I do anything from inspiring health and well-being, from potentially serious conditions to mild conditions, or working with people to inspire more fulfillment or purpose in their lives. So I work in a broad range with anyone that needs inspiration. With this, the way I do this is I do it through two ways. One is the traditional muse active contagion. The other is I teach people about brain function. So I teach people how to control their brain chemistry so that they can have more fulfilling, happier, healthier lives. So I do this currently through a program I have available called the Inspired Evolution Project. The Inspired Evolution Project is a 5-phase program to help us move into the highest brain functions possible for our species. So early on in this program, phases 1 and 2, nearly everything is available for free. So if you are currently suffering any conditions, struggling with money, I do work with a lot of people that have things like PTSD or addiction or cancer or traumatic brain injury. And because of these conditions, they're not able to work. So I do want to make what's available free so that people can start to get healthy and happy without having to have a huge investment. I know when I needed this the most, I had the least amount of money. So I do want to make that available to people. So if you're struggling, you feel like you may not be able to pay for a program, just check this out. There will be a lot of resources listed at the end of the video where you can find out more and find out what free options we do have. So that said, what I want to do here today is to talk to you about the phases and hopefully help you understand what we're offering here so that you can decide if it's something that fits for you, if something that has an interest to you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through these phases, give you a little detail on what's offered in each, and then again at the end of the video I'll give you information of how you can move forward if you're interested in becoming involved. So the first phase that we work with is phase 1, and we call this phase for the relief of suffering. Now, in this phase, what we're coming to understand is that mental, emotional, and physical pain are the byproduct of overactive fight or flight triggers caused by an enlarged amygdala. So part of this phase, one of the major functions of this phase is to understand our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are byproducts of a chemical and not the cause. So trying to work on our thoughts or trying to think more positively or not be reactive can be nearly impossible as a brain function. As long as that amygdala is enlarged, we're going to be overreactive and we're going to be really emotional in our responses. And so what we want to understand is that in phase 1, what we're learning is that these thoughts, feelings, emotions, even our sense of self, our identity, are all byproducts of a chemical, not the cause. Because once we understand that how we experience reality is chemically driven, we can then be able to control it, which is a very powerful thing. So we're doing two things in phase 1. Again, we're becoming aware that how we experience reality is byproduct of a chemical. The second thing we're doing is we're learning healthy ways to enter a rest and digest state at will. So when we are triggered, when we are reactive, emotional, in pain, we can easily move into a rest and digest state, which will relieve that suffering. So phase 1 is literally for the relief of suffering, to begin to relieve suffering in our life, not by directly addressing the suffering, but by directing the brain function that causes the suffering. As we move into phase 2 is where we are working to become more centered. So in phase 2, what we're trying to do is break the fight or flight, rest and digest patterns which will shrink the amygdala. So what we're doing is we are doing more centered prefrontal cortex activities. One of the biggest things about a lot of things we try out there is the fact that we are trying to consciously control subconscious triggers in our brain. In fact, entirely unconscious triggers that are activated by sensory awareness of the body. And what's happening when we're trying to control those triggers is we're trying to use 3 billion neurons. Our brain has 86 billion neurons, and we're trying to use 3 billion neurons to control the other 83 billion. It is such an impossible task. Many of us try for decades, and we only achieve nominal success. So what we're doing here is we're going to start moving consciously more into becoming centered. Now, there are a lot that does this. We're wanting, now that we're starting to address the amygdala, we want to activate the prefrontal cortex. There is a ton available all over. If you type prefrontal cortex into the internet, you will get a ton of resources. So phase 1 and 2 are really readily available in the world. Phase 1 is all just coping mechanisms, calming the system, anything that you know about having to do that, that's phase 1. Phase 2 is about activating the prefrontal cortex. And what this is going to do is start shrinking the amygdala and breaking the fight or flight, rest and digest pattern in the brain. So we become less emotional, less reactful, and a lot more mindful. So after we finish those, this is really where the Inspired Evolution Project moves away from many of the programs out there. There are other opportunities to learn these, but this is where I feel a really unique nature to what we do. And that is by entering phase 3, which is where we begin to learn the active listening state. Now, active listening is not attentive listening. This is not where we're attentively listening to people or surroundings. Active listening is about connecting two parts of the brain that are critical. So our left and right brain are fairly similar. So the left and right hemispheres work pretty much the same. If you remove one, the other one will compensate. But there is a slight variance, which is the fact that the right brain tends to be really expansive in thought, where the left brain is a lot more detail-oriented. Now, what we're doing in phase 3 when we're learning active listening is we're learning to bring those hemispheres to teach them to work together really well. So that we're teaching that deeper level of communication. The communication between the left and right hemisphere, and the communication with the insula in the brain. So the insula is the part of our brain that has deep knowing, that we tend to experience spiritual experiences. So those things that we would call spiritual, that are peace and harmony, connectedness, all those deep moving experiences we have, this is where our insula is engaged. So as we learn active listening, we learn to start consciously interacting with that deeper nature. We start to change the survival mechanisms in the brain, because we become a lot more innovative. So our survival mechanisms begin to change from safety and familiarity, which is where we're using the amygdala, to safety and adaptability, which is where we're using the insula. So we're starting to look at developing a lot higher self-esteem, a lot more confidence, a lot higher feelings of capability by strengthening that communication between both the left and right brain and the prefrontal cortex and insula. So we start to have very conscious experiences of that deep love and connectedness we feel when the insula is activated. So as we move into phase 4, we're going to where classes will soon be available, where you can attend online. As I make more videos, those should become more available. We have a meetup group called the Inspired Evolution Project, also another one called Inspired, Create a Life You Love. And the classes are posted on Facebook as well. We have lit up that class is on aligning with nature and understanding the effects nature, and we as part of nature, how that affects the brain. and relationship balancing, and that we get deeper into what's happening with the species as we evolve out of these more primal mechanisms and into higher brain function. We talk about it from a lot of different angles and how those affect our relationships with others and with ourselves, all of our relationships. On Wednesday nights, we have brain chemistry classes. So if you want more detail on the brain and how that's affecting your consciousness, has understanding of advanced brain function. Every Thursday night is a meditation. We are, what I'm doing is teaching an active listening form of meditation. So this is where I'm really teaching that combination, that phase 3 practice, and helping people understand how to do that practice at home so that they can really start shrinking that amygdala and really altering how they experience reality. And in this, there will also possibly be some live meditations available on programs like Spotify. Those will be announced when they become available. There are also occasionally Saturday workshops, and on Sunday I have a writing group, which is working with the phase 3, phase 4 practices. So if you feel like you're ready to get in and start learning that active listening stuff, I'll answer questions, and then we spend about 45 minutes together writing and then have an opportunity to share. So I think that's all of it for right now. In a nutshell, I will be posting more videos. If there's any information you need, just go ahead and post questions on Facebook or Meetup, and I'm happy to answer all of those I can. Again, there will be some forums available on the website. I'm hoping this gives you enough information. If you want to know more, really do go to theinspiredevolutionproject.com, and there is a lot of great information, and there will be a lot of great free resources there. All the meetups I mentioned, the groups I mentioned are free, the videos are free. There's going to be a lot on the website that's free. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful day.